And I'm amazed at how few of them really understand how to throw a football. So they were just gifted and they have a strong arm and they can come back and wing the ball a long ways, but they don't understand how it all connects together. And making the quarterback think while he's making the throw, I could go out and throw a slant blind right now and complete it every time. But I need to see what the linebacker's doing. Does it need to be a quick slant throw because the linebacker's tucked inside? Is the linebacker buzzing hard, so I need to hold on my back foot to hit the slant? So it's little things like that, you know.
All right, we have Hall of Famer Kurt Warner here joining us, and more recently, Coach Kurt Warner. How special was it to coach your son for those years that you did?
I mean, it was great. You know, so I started when my middle son started playing high school. I coached them a little bit when they were, kind of coming up in Pop Warner, but kind of really got into it when my middle son started high school, and then did it through Elijah, who's my youngest son, until he graduated. So it was fun. It's fun to be able to use kind of your expertise and help them, chase their dreams. Cade, actually that ball right behind me kind of set the state record for catches. He was a wide receiver, so it was fun because he was kind of a chess piece and was able to teach him a lot of different nuances of playing the position from a lot of different places. And then EJ being a quarterback is always fun to be able to teach him and have your hands on him. As many great coaches, and as much as I appreciate the coaches that volunteer their time, I think when you have a son that wants to play on and has dreams of playing and moving forward, you want to have your hands on him, and you want to be able to help him and give him every bit of knowledge and expertise you have to help them be successful. So, for those two, it was great. I also just enjoyed, helping their teammates. And, you have some that want to go on and play college. You have others that just want to enjoy the high school experience. So it's a little different than the higher levels where it's so much about winning. To me, it was just about what does success look like for each of these kids? What are they looking to get out of high school football? Challenge the guys that want to be challenged, and then, help the other guys have a great high school experience and have a lot of fun. And I enjoyed it, but it definitely took over my time.
Yeah, for sure.
I told my wife it would just be a couple hours a day at practice, and she came to realize it was not just that. Nope. When you got to kind of have that mindset of helping your kids and helping the kids have success, it's constantly going through your mind on what you can do and how you can help them. But I did enjoy the experience, but I'm glad to be done now and being able to watch them.
Yeah, and that's great. And Kurt, we're going to dig into your story a little bit. I think a lot of people are familiar with the American Underdog movie, and I wanted to talk more from a player perspective, but also from a coach perspective. So before we actually dive into all of this, for the very, very few that probably don't know who you are, can you just give us a 10-second intro about yourself, and please feel free to brag about yourself too?
Yeah, probably won't do that. But an interesting journey. A guy that sat on the bench for 4 years in college, got cut from my first NFL team, worked in a grocery store, played arena football, played, NFL Europe before finally getting my shot to play with the team back behind us, the Rams. Got my first start when I was 28, and things went pretty well. A couple MVPs, a few Super Bowl appearances, Super Bowl champion. So it was a great run. It was an interesting journey, different than anybody else that's ever done it. But I look back now and I'm grateful for all the different stops and parts of the journey that kind of shaped me into both the player and the person that I am today.
Yeah, I want to dig into a little bit of that because I know you mentioned playing, at University of Northern Iowa. You go undrafted, let go by the Packers. Then you go to the Arena League, which you dominate for 3 seasons. You go to Amsterdam, and then you get to the Rams, and then you go to the Giants, and you go to Arizona. So a lot, like you mentioned, ups and downs in your career. Mentally, what kept you going? Because I think a lot of people just cut it after, they get let go by the Packers, and that's just kind of it. I'm going to go work a day job. What kept you going?
The biggest thing for me is I never lacked confidence, and I never lost confidence. Is that no matter what part of the journey I was on, whether it was sitting on the bench or getting caught or even in the grocery store, I always believed in who I was. And it wasn't ever to me, we got a saying kind of in our household, we said, never let your circumstances define you. And, it would have been easy to do that in a lot of different situations. But for me, I always believed in what I was capable of. And, I was a guy that, and I always bring up the story of David and Goliath, because obviously my story kind of relates to, that idea. But there's a great scene in the David and Goliath story where David is talking to King Saul, and King Saul basically looks at him and goes, all right, dude, you're a little shepherd boy. You haven't been trained for this. Why do you believe you can take down this giant? I got all these trained soldiers here that are afraid of this guy, but you walk in here. What is it about you that makes you think that you can be successful? And David just looks back at him and says, well, because every time I've been challenged like this, I've been successful. So, and he referenced back to when he was, protecting his flock, and a wolf would come or a bear would come or a lion would come. And he's like, every time, I was challenged with one of those different giants, I defeated that giant and I protected my flock. And so here I am. And yeah, maybe this giant's bigger and, more intimidating than the others, but all I know is that I'm successful in these moments. So why would I believe anything else, coupled with obviously his big God? But, it was that confidence that he took from other spots that he carried with him everywhere he went. And I looked at it the very same way, is that I played 1 year in college, but I was the player of the year in our conference. I played 3 years in arena football, and I was the best quarterback in arena football. And I went to a couple championship games. I played in Europe, same type of thing. And so just like David said, every giant I faced, I was successful, even though this one's bigger. And so when I got to the NFL, it was kind of the same way. It's like, why would I not think I'm going to be successful? I was always successful. I always, with a ball in my hands, I was always really good and had success between the lines. And so when I got to the NFL, it was the same way. So that's where I gained my confidence was, I didn't look at the times I wasn't playing. I didn't look at the times when I didn't get the opportunities. I looked at the moments when I did get the opportunities and what did I do with it? And so until somebody could show me that I had a ball in my hands and I couldn't do it, I wasn't going to lose, I wasn't going to lose confidence. The hope part of it was a little bit different because my hope, laid so much in other people's hands, is that I couldn't just create my own opportunity. I needed somebody to give me an opportunity. So that was the harder part. But the confidence was easy because, just like David, I had always had success in those previous moments.
I love that. And that's kind of where, I wanted to lead with my next question too, because I think, you go to the NFL, you get cut by the Packers, right? And then, a lot of high school players I think we see nowadays are all D1 bust mentality, right? It's like, I'm either going to the top or I'm not going to play at all, right? And, you were at the top and then got cut. And now you got to make this decision, like, do I go to the Arena League or what do I do with my career? How do you decide to go to the Arena League and play for the Iowa Barnstormers?
The bottom line for me, and, I think it should be the same for all these kids going off to college or whatever it is that playing is always better than not playing.
Right.
If you want to prove yourself to someone, if you want to get an opportunity, playing is where somebody can actually see you and where you'll garner that opportunity. And so for me, I didn't want to play arena football. I actually turned it down a couple times before that, waiting for a call from the NFL or whatever. But eventually it was like, hey, I'm stocking shelves in a grocery store,
right?
Or I could play football. Like it wasn't that difficult, A, I was going to make more money. B, I was playing football again and at least, taking a step towards my dream. And I look at it too all the time as, having a son that plays college football and having a son that wants to play at a Power 4 school and wants to be on the big stage and all that. The bottom line is, he never got that opportunity, whether it was out of high school or even entering the portal a couple times, hoping that after the success that he had, it would lead to something. And he's never got that opportunity. But the bottom line is that at the end of his college career, he'll have thrown for 12, 13,000 yards. He'll have played a lot of football at a really high level. And, and I think that will lead to a shot to fulfill his dream. And so the way I look at it with all that stuff is that playing is always better than not playing. And how many, top picks, these, top-ranked guys in high school that, go to the big schools, never see the field. They never get on the field because there's 4 of those guys at each one of those schools. Each year they get, the best of the class. And it's great if you're one of those that finds their way through or is good enough to be on the field. Obviously, playing in an LSU or a Georgia or Michigan or Ohio State is obviously going to bode well in terms of eyes on you, competitiveness, giving you a shot at the next level. But not playing is not going to give you a shot.
Right.
And we've seen all these guys that are really highly touted coming out of high school that never get that opportunity to play wherever they go, whether that's because portal guys come in, whether that's just because they're not quite as good as the really good player in front of them. And so, for me, with my boys and with Elijah, at the end of the day, it's like, pick the best spot for you to play, to be able to do what you do, to have success, to showcase what you're good at. And I believe if you're good and you have success, they'll find you and you'll get an opportunity. And then you always have to prove yourself in that opportunity. It's just, there's too many guys that never get the chance because they go a certain place and they just either don't fit in or they're not quite as good. And so for me, it's always about find a place where you really believe you can be the guy to play, because playing will always be better than not playing. And then at the end of the day too, I always, I know the dream is to play in the NFL. That's a dream for all of us. It's a dream for my boys. But we also have to be realistic and understand that not very many make it. So if you don't end up making that step and that jump to the NFL, I'm so glad that Elijah will have been a starter for 4 years, and he'll have had a lot of success, and he'll be able to play out, if this is the end of it, his last days, he'll be able to be on the field having a bunch of success and having a lot of fun if this is the last of, his football playing, and we all hope it isn't. And, I do believe he'll get an opportunity, but that's the other side of it, is that you fell in love because you wanted to play the game, because you love playing the game. And so, I just want all of these guys that, whether they make it or not, whether play at a big school or not, man, just play some ball and do what you love doing. And so no matter how it ends up, you're proud of how it played out. You're happy that you got to play and excel and be on the field when it came to an end, instead of just kind of seeing it, never getting that opportunity. And then it's like, oh my gosh, who would have thought last time I played significant snaps would be in high school, and you miss out on, your 4 or 5 years of playing in college. And so that to me was always kind of my mindset as I bounced to different places was, man, at the end of the day, I want to play football. And if it doesn't end up being in the NFL, let me play as much as I can, as long as I can somewhere else. And then we'll go from there, because I just love playing ball.
Mm-hmm. And that's really cool. Like, a stat about you is, believe the only player that is in the NFL Hall of Fame and the Arena Hall of Fame as well. So it's a great point, though. Just put a ball in your hand, right? Just play football. And I think that's a great message to all the players that are either transferring around or coming out of high school. It's like, show them what you could do no matter what level to get to that next level that you want to go to. So, Kurt, let's talk about, American Underdog came out. I thought Zachary Levi did an awesome job portraying you, and the greatest show on turf. I want to focus more on that season as well. What made that offense so great? And if you can, I want to look at it from a coaching perspective. You've coached football, obviously you played in the system, but looking at that team from a 10,000-foot view, like, what made it so great behind the scenes?
First, the collection of talent. We had an unbelievable collection of talent there. And so, talent can take you a long ways. But I think the system fit our players, fit me as a quarterback, that we were very aggressive. We were about attacking down the field and trying to make big throws and chunk throws and score a touchdown on every play. So it very much fit what my skill set was, what my mindset was. I was coming from arena football where you score 70 points a game and, you don't punt. And so my mindset really fit into that. We were very timing oriented within our offense. And so, we had some great route runners, Isaac and Torrey. We had Marshall Falk in the backfield. And so these guys had such a great sense of timing and feel for the game. So that connection between, myself and them, and then how Mike Martz wanted to design plays and how we talked about, throwing different routes, I think really fit. And then the third thing, I believe Mike was very innovative. He challenged us every week. We would go into games with 220 pass plays, pass plays that we'd never practiced, and we would call them in a game, and guys could execute them. And so we were on the cutting edge of really challenging defenses in new and different ways. And we were always on the aggressive. We were never, sitting back and, letting the game come. We were always trying to force the issue and threaten defenses. So I just think there was a number of things that really kind of came together. All those things, you kind of throw them into a hat, and it equaled, to me, what's still the greatest offense that we've seen over kind of a 3-year period in NFL history. But it was all of those things coming together. We needed all of those parts, and we were fortunate to have them.
Yeah, when you say the coach would throw about 220 pass plays at you, as a quarterback, how was that? Do you just knew the concepts and like what each concept, maybe if it was half field or if it was a full field progression, like where you're trying to go with the football? Like how did he layer those into the game plan?
I mean, it was, that was the challenge for all of us, was to learn all those plays, and for a quarterback to understand, okay, I get this coverage. If I get this coverage, I'm going here or going there. Being able to see it, and sometimes when you don't practice it, still having to walk yourself through, okay, what am I looking at? What are the possibilities here? What could a defense do? What if they do this? And so it was definitely a challenge. Without a doubt, there was, a number of concepts when we would have 220 that were, would be similar concepts, over, a number of plays. And so you had a feel for what you were doing. I always thought Mike did a great job of giving me answers against every coverage. And, with my understanding of coverages and kind of, what the responsibilities within those coverages were, and, how we were running things, it was easy for me to kind of decipher, okay, if I get cover 2, this is what I'm doing. If I get cover 4, this is what I'm doing. If I get man, this is where I'm going. So, I just think it was a combination of all of that. But, Mike was very detail oriented, and it made sense. I think that's the other thing to me that is always important, is that there's oftentimes coaches will design these plays and you just kind of look at it and go like, I have no idea what we're trying to do.
Right.
And the coach will be like, don't worry about it. This and this is going to be open. And you're like, okay, hopefully that's open, because if it's not, I have no idea what's going on here. And Mike, I thought, always, had a method to the madness, and it was easy to figure out for me. Oh, this is why we're doing it. Oh, this is why we're putting this check down here. This is why we're releasing this way. And, so again, all of that stuff made sense to me. I saw the game very similarly to how Mike saw the game. And I think that was the most important thing, and always is the most important thing between an offense coordinator and a quarterback is making sure that you see it and understand it the same way, because then, as a play comes up there, you both have a really good sense, and it's easy for one to go, hey, why don't we put this here because this helps me, and the other guy sees that exactly, and you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And so that continuity is very good, and Mike and I had very good continuity in terms of how we saw it, the way we thought the game, when he called a play, knowing, what he was thinking and where he wanted to go with it, and then being able to take it from there.
Now, did he do anything unique from a game plan perspective? You've played in with the Giants and with the Cardinals as well. Is there anything that he did when you first got in that allow you to grasp the offense? Because I believe you took over right away, when Trent Green went down. So it's like you had to get up to speed rather quickly in a sense. You couldn't have just got thrown in there. So was his game planning techniques a little bit different? Did he do anything differently that really stood out?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it was similar to where, to other places I was at. I would just say that the details were always top notch, that he knew what everybody was supposed to be doing. And like I said, there's a lot of coaches that just kind of design plays, and they don't understand the importance of technique and, how we're going to release on a play and what the spacing is on a play and where we need to put a back or a check down and why that's vital for what I'm seeing, and how quickly we need to create, movement or reads for the quarterback. And I think that to me was where Mike was so different. He was just so detail oriented, and just harped on the little things that made the biggest difference. And so it was a blessing to be able to be taught under that, and then be able to take that into other places I was at. Hey, if we're going to be at 18 yards, we need to be at 18 yards. There's other places that I'd go and it'd be like, oh, you can go 16 to 19. And I'm like, 16 to 19.
Yeah, 16 or 19.
I mean, I'm trying to throw the ball. I'm trying to anticipate. How do I anticipate if you're going to give them 3 yards of distance? And so, it was that kind of stuff that to me was kind of the difference maker in what we did and how he laid it out and how he taught us. And then, a lot of those things, those principles would hold true from one play to the next, to the next, to the next. So those would become things that, even though we had a lot of plays, guys could kind of plug themselves into their role and know, okay, this is what Mike expects in this particular situation, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and it allows you as a quarterback to get in a rhythm too, going from the same continuity from play to play. You talk about the little things, Curtin. I have a quote here from Twitter from you, which I want to break down a little bit more. It was, I was never a huge drill guy unless it pertained to something mentally. Give me a concept where I have to work the drill while having eyes on the read and make the exact throw. You always tie the physical in with the mental. So less of a drill and more of a physical rep of a game plan while focusing on a skill. When you're on Twitter, like when you see quarterback drills come up or just quarterback drills in general, what do you think is missing from the quarterback drill perspective? I know you mentioned tying the physical with the mental, but how do you necessarily do that if a quarterback coach is listening or even a quarterback is listening right now?
Well, I mean, I guess kind of one of the biggest things is you see all these guys throwing against air. Like anybody can throw against air, good players can throw against air and be successful against air. So, I never see a defender, I never see, even if it's just one defender to go, okay, this is what we're trying to see. This is who we're throwing it around. This is who we're throwing it over, and moving that defender and making the quarterback think while he's making the throw. Like I could go out and throw a slant blind right now, and complete it every time. But I need to see what the linebacker's doing. Does it need to be a quick slant throw because the linebacker's tucked inside? Is the linebacker buzzing hard, so I need to hold on my back foot to hit the slant? So it's little things like that, movement drills. I see so many of these coaches are coaching movement drills now because, you got to be like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and all these guys. But, when they do that, they have the quarterback drop and he's getting to the top of his drop and he's taking off and moving. So he never sets his feet. Like he never gets set for the actual throw. So like, for instance, what I always do is I'm like, okay, we're going to work curl flat. And then there will be an element of movement in it. So bottom line is 80% of the throws are going to be curl flat. I want to teach him, get back, get set into your back foot, take your quick hitch, read the outside linebacker, make the throw. That's what we're working on. And then every once in a while, I'm going to flash and give you movement, but I need you to get back and get set. And I don't want you to play like you're going to get, you're going to move because you have no idea if that's going to be the case. You're going to play as if you're going to throw curl flat. And then you're going to react. And that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about where I'm teaching them the skill and I'm teaching them the mental part of it. And then the reactionary part comes in. And so they're always mentally thinking about something and we're working the physical because 90% of the time you're going to get into your back foot, you're going to get set, and you're going to make the curl or the flat throw. That's what we're going to do. So I need that to be normal. I don't want you to ever come back and go, oh, I don't have to get into my back foot because he's going to flash and make me move. And I've just lost a rep on building, those things that need to become habitual for us. And so that's what I'm talking about is that we come out and go, hey, we're going to work movement today. So the quarterback never drops and sets. He never takes the normal drop that he's going to take because he's just waiting for the movement, right? He's reaching his back foot and he's never. And so to me, I need you to always think, play the play, play the play, play the play, now react, play the play, now react. And so that to me is what I'm always trying to do is I'm trying to teach them the play. I'm trying to teach them what to read, where their eyes need to be, what their timing and footwork is, how to get into your back foot so you're always in a position to throw. And then we'll react from that to piece number 2. It's not just drop back and throw a slant. It's drop back, read the outside linebacker, and see if you can throw the slant or throw the flat. And so those are things to me that become so important. And I think oftentimes when you pull out a drill and you're trying to work on one particular skill, you forget about everything else that goes into that particular play, and you just work in the skill, which to me doesn't matter because you're never going to do that in a game. You're never going to drop back and just go, oh, I'm going to wait for pressure and then I'm going to move. That's just not how it works, and vice versa. You're not just going to drop back every time and throw the curl or the flat and just get stuck back there. It's going to be times you have to move. You have to create. So trying to, put all of that together so, they're working on the physical and we're getting used to the habits that we need to have physically while we're also seeing something mentally. So, we're connecting those things together because you can't just do the physical and set and then do the mental. You got to do it together. And then we'll add a reactionary piece to it on top of that. So we're continually stacking, but everything comes from you're dropping back and you're getting set to throw curl flat. That's what we're working on. Then everything else will work from there.
Yeah. And football's so dynamic too. I think that element gets lost so much as well. Like there's so many moving pieces. A lineman could miss a block right off the jump. Like you said, he has to step up into the pocket and he may have to throw that thing early, late, whatever it may be. So that's a great point. Just on, you can't just make it throwing against air, against nothing. So I kind of want to transition from that question into, you coach, like you said, you coached EJ when he was younger, and then you coached him in high school. What do you think is the most, and a two-part question here, but we'll start with the first part. What do you think is the most undercoached attribute of the quarterback position?
Learning how to throw a football. The technique that goes into throwing a football and, working from back to front and, the little details that make you accurate, leading with your feet, leading with your body, taking your arm out of a throw. I think all of those things, I work with a lot of, young kids, college kids, sometimes even pro guys. And I'm amazed at how few of them really understand how to throw a football. But they were just gifted and they have a strong arm and they can come back and wing the ball a long ways, but they don't understand how it all connects together. And, I think that's the biggest thing. I don't think a lot of people understand it, but I don't think enough time is spent, right? We spend so much time on this other stuff and these funky throws and, playing off platform. And the bottom line is if you can make every throw you're supposed to make on time and on platform, you've got a chance. And then you got to take it from there. But I just feel like we spend so much time working things that, to me, aren't the most important things.
Right.
I want to teach you how to be
the 3%. Yeah. That you may
I want to teach you how to be a quarterback. I want to teach you, how to work your feet and how to make throws and how to engage your body and how to take your legs out of it when you need to, or take your arm out of it. But just learning how to throw a football, how to lead the football with your body, to me is something that's lacking all over the place. And to me, it's the most critical aspect to playing the position. We watch Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes play and, we see their feet all out of whack and they can still make these unbelievable throws. And so guys are trying to figure out, okay, let me try that. Instead of realizing these guys are unique with how they use their body to create their power. And so that to me is the most vital part of throwing a football. But so many of these people are just like, hey, let me put my feet here and then just try to wing it 40 yards with my arm. And you're just like, you're missing the whole point of what makes these guys great. And so, it's either if you're teaching off of those guys, understand what you're teaching, or don't teach off those guys. Teach off the guys like myself and the Drew Brees that, hey, we didn't do all that stuff. We weren't great, but we were really good at playing the position and throwing on time and making the throws that were there in front of us. And that to me is where you always have to start, and the thing that, continues to be neglected in my opinion.
Now, flip side of that, let's talk about the most overcoached, or do you think that part is the most overcoached as well?
I think the most overcoached part of things is, the off-platform stuff that, that we're always trying to do, making guys throw crazy throws on the run and all of that stuff. And it's not that that's not important, but still so much of that comes back to the same things that I was talking about before. And if you can learn how to throw the right way, it helps to carry you through on a lot of those off-platform things that to me, you don't need to work on nearly as much as people do. Because learning how to throw, learn how to gauge your body, it will take you right into a lot of that stuff. But instead, we're just trying to get guys moving and on the run, and then, oh, great throw, but we're not teaching them the proper way to do it. So it's not great throw after great throw after great throw. It's one great throw, or look, wow, that's awesome. And to me, again, it's just nothing at the quarterback position is worth anything if you can't consistently be good at it. And so, teaching those little things as opposed to, falling in love with the wow plays, to me is, again, the thing that's overcoached way too much.
Now, I have to assume that mindset and philosophy is kind of why you created QB Confidential. Is that kind of what led you into creating that platform? QBconfidential.com, if you want to talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I developed it was because I love coaching. I will probably never get into full-time coaching just because of the time and the other things that I have going. But B, even if you get into full-time coaching, you only get to coach a handful of people, a handful of quarterbacks or a handful of other coaches. And so QB Confidential became my way of saying, this is my chance to coach the masses, whether that's the quarterback guru that's out there, coaching all of these kids. I get a chance to coach them through QB Confidential, whether that's the young kid that wants to supplement his training, or the young kid that can't afford personal training like so many kids do now. This is a way for them to start at ground zero and learn, really, to me, anything you need to know about the quarterback position. It's a chance for me to teach coaches, whether it's the playbook portion or whether it's teaching them how to teach quarterbacks, the technique that's involved with the different kinds of throws and the different kinds of elements that are out there. And so, it became a way for me to coach and teach as many people as will take advantage of it. I don't think there's anything else out there like that. I don't think there's anything else out there that has this much information from top to bottom. I don't think there's anything out there that can coach, kids that are just starting or coaches that are just starting, all the way up to guys that are playing in the NFL. I think it's a one-of-a-kind deal. I haven't really gone out and promoted it. I'm in the process of finishing my 4th year, so it's really going to be kind of a 4-year program. I'm going to finish it. Then at some point I need to promote it, because I think, it's cheap. It's ridiculous for the price of a movie ticket or a value meal. You can get, the first year of the program has 52 weeks of 5 different, the 5 different elements that I have. So I have a blackboard element, I have an on the field element, I have a playbook element, I have a leadership kind of a quarterback leadership type element. And then I have a film study type element. So there's 5 elements to it. And the first year you get, one of those elements, every weekday, all year long. So 52 episodes of all 5 of those. So the first year has 250 episodes in it, just the first year. And so, it's an overwhelming amount of information. And so that's the other thing, is that if you're going to get on, understand, what it entails. And it just kind of lets you know, you want to be great at this position. You want to be great at coaching this position. There is a whole bunch that goes into it. But it is my means of coaching and teaching. The beautiful thing is, we know now it can live forever. Once I create it, the database is there, the videos are there, it can live forever. So what I'm teaching, a group now is the same thing I would be teaching a group 5 years from now and 10 years from now. And so it will live forever. But I'm very, very proud of it. And the people that have been on it love it. They can't get enough of it. I set it up as a kind of a curriculum also, so a lot of times people will get on and they're like, why can't I have every video right off the bat? And, I'm developing different programs so you can get access to more and more videos if you want at one time. But it's important to me not to overwhelm people with the information. Yeah. It is a hard position to play. There is a lot of things that go into it. And once we start moving too fast, we start neglecting certain things that we need to know. So I set it up in kind of curriculum form. So just for instance, ABCs is my on the field session. So I give you an on the field video on a Tuesday, and then you'll get another video the next Tuesday. I'm not giving you one on Wednesday. And I want you to spend from Tuesday to Tuesday working on whatever it is that we're working on. Don't move on until you've, become an expert at that. And that's become more habitual for you. So then you can stack the next thing on top of it. Otherwise, it's even like my son, who's a really good quarterback. But when I take him out there and if I give him 3 things to do, he's like, Dad, what do you want me to focus on? Like, I can't. Yeah. And it's like, well, you got to do them all. Like at some point you've got to do them all. But if you can't, okay, let's focus on this one right now. And so that's kind of the way I set it up, is that it's like taking a class. So this is week number 1. Let me learn it. Let me work on it. Boom. Here's week number 2. Now I can start stacking, and now I can start putting these 2 pieces together. And you work your way through it. And so I'm always leery of giving people too much. Now there's certain aspects of it that it's cool, like a playbook. You get one play, don't necessarily need an entire week, kind of take that in. You could have, so there's certain elements that I think you can move a little bit faster, and why there are, programs in which you can go a little bit faster. But I just always caution people that, because once you get overwhelmed, you stop. That's kind of what happens, is like, I can't do all of that, so I'm just going to quit. I'm going to give up, or I'm just going to forget about it and go do my own thing. And so, that's kind of why I set it up the way that I did. But I think it is a one-of-a-kind teaching tool that's out there. If you're an offensive coach, if you want to learn the quarterback position, if you are a quarterback, even for fans and people out there that want to learn the nuances and the why behind things, I think it can be a great tool also. But as you said, it's qbconfidential.com. The other thing that I think is cool is that everybody that buys a subscription to it has the ability to email me as well. So I created a coach's, kind of a coach's corner on there, where I'm like, okay, we'll just let people ask questions. But I've neglected that part of it. I hate to say, but it just becomes easier for me when they email me a question that I just email them back, instead of being able to have to set up and shoot the video, even though I should, because I know there's probably other people that have questions. I'm going to get better at that as I finish this up. But it gives them access to be able to hit me up with, hey, what would you do in this situation? Or here's, one of the plays that I really like. What would you? And so I love that one-on-one interaction with guys, where I can really kind of fine tune it or cater it to what they're looking for. So that's another aspect that I really enjoy about it. And I think it's kind of unique, is they get the ability to kind of reach out to me and have some dialogue, personally back and forth. So again, if there's anybody out there, just check it out. Just sign up. You get a couple weeks for free. You'll see what it's all about. But I don't think, I don't think you'll be worrying about it, once you get into it, because there's just so much information to learn from there that I think it'll be a benefit for anybody that jumps on.
Yeah, I love the week-by-week progression too. I know a lot of coaches that we work with, when we talk to, said that a lot of material out there feels like they're drinking water through a fire hose. Everything's just thrown at you at once. And it's a great point that you made too. Like, if you don't get it within the first week or two and you feel overwhelmed, you're just going to quit. You're just going to stop doing it. So I love that week-by-week progression. Kurt's got a couple more questions here for you. Just when we talk about, and this is something I've been thinking about lately a lot, you talk about decision-making from a quarterback and how important that part is, right? Like, you can throw the prettiest football in the world, but if you're throwing it to the other team, it doesn't really matter, right? How do you coach decision-making throughout the week? Do you think, like, there's no tools out there with VR and other things that help quarterbacks make decision-making a little bit faster, but if you don't have the opportunity to have these tools at your disposal, how would you go about teaching either a young quarterback or even a high school quarterback decision-making from a week-to-week basis?
I mean, I think the first and easiest way is, just like we were talking earlier about throwing against air, is not put my guys against air. That always going to try to, give them a concept and throw a defender out there. Even if it's simply just, hey, throw this slant over here or throw your check down, like maybe it's just 2 options, and I'm just going to throw a coach out there or another player out there and say, do one of 2 things, either stand there or move to the slant. Like, just give me something mentally that I can see. and at the same time, teaching my quarterbacks where their eyes need to go for the read right now. Like, who am I reading on this play? And so the more I can do that, the more I can create those things, the better off I am. Like when I was on my, when I was coaching high school, we would always throw concepts as opposed to just routes. So we would throw a slant flat, and, I would put a defender out there and, let my quarterback, read it and then make the throw. And then I'd have another quarterback ready just to flip it to the other guy. So he got his catch, instead of just going, okay, we're going to throw the flat here and then we're going to throw a slant. And so there's no mental side of it. It's just coming back and just and throwing a route. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and again, I talk about it a lot in QB Confidential, is that a lot of it as a coach comes down to me creating plays that can be definitive and giving my quarterback a read as quickly as possible. I always say I'm trying to force defenders to move as quickly as possible, because movement or lack of movement is what tells my quarterback where to throw a football. So again, if we'll just use that simple example as a slant flat. I see some guys coach it where their flat pushes up a yard, hesitates, then goes to the flat. And for me, I'm like, no, width and depth at the same time. Go. I need you to get width right now. Go as fast as you can to the flat. You can get your depth along the way. Why? Because if that linebacker is tucked inside of you and you go straight to the flat, he better move. Yeah, if he doesn't move, game over, I've got my flat. And so I'm trying to create ways for my quarterback to get a very, very quick read. And so I design plays with that in mind, creating movement, or, showing my quarterback, he doesn't move right now, throw it here. He moves it, now we get a chance to be able to throw it behind him and manipulate him. And so to me, it's those kinds of things. So it's not just on the quarterback, but it's me as a coach creating opportunities for my quarterback to see it and see it and see it over and over again. Know where my eyes need to get to. Know who I'm looking at. Know what that read looks like, right? When, how much movement, coach, before I can throw this or throw that? Like, what am I looking at? And so the more I can get him into those situations and get him to see it, the better off we are. And so those are the things that start. Even if I'm, on a board in a meeting room, this is your guy. This is what we're doing, and one thing that you talk about overcoached earlier, one thing that I think is way overcoached is eyes and holding defenders. And I hear people say that all the time. You're staring down your receiver. And I sit back and look at that and I go, okay, tell me what that means. If you're a guy saying that, I want to know what that means. Because if I'm throwing slant flat, I don't need to hold anybody. Like, I'm going to get my eyes over there on the outside linebacker as fast as I can so I can throw the flat right now. Like, I'm not going to keep my eyes down the middle of the field because it just makes my read slower. And, you have to ask the question is like, who am I holding? I don't need to hold a free safety to throw a slant flat. Like, it doesn't make sense. And so staring down my receiver does nothing in those situations, because it's more about getting the ball out on time than it is bringing somebody to the party. And so I, watch quarterbacks all the time that'll drop and their eyes are down the field for 2 steps. And I'm like, what are you doing? Who are you holding? Like, who are you worried about on this particular play? I'm worried about you being late on the slant, because now the free safety maybe gets involved. If you're on time, he's not even relevant. So quit worrying about him. Worry about the guys you have to worry about. And so, yes, there's times, double seams, we got to hold the free safety to figure out where there are times we hold defenders, but that is slim. Very seldom am I holding a defender. I'm hoping that the play design that my coach came up with holds the guys that need to be held, right? Or, designs a play where I don't have to worry about the safety here because he's not relevant on the spacing of this particular play. And so, those elements become so important too, is understanding what you need to do on a play with your eyes, how quickly you need to get somewhere, where you need to look on a particular play. What are you looking for in movement, right? That's another thing when we talk about reads. The first step is, okay, we need to see, okay, we're going to run the typical smash, corner hitch. Okay, so I need to come out and see the depth of the corner, right? Okay, he's 8 yards deep. He can't take away the hitch. All right, he's sitting at 3 yards. Unless he turns and runs, it's going to be hard for him to cover the corner over the top. But that's the first step of things is feeling and understanding the kind of depth of where a guy is. But then it's taking these guys, and now it's like, okay, we got that down. Now I want you to look at body language. Okay, so I want you to come out and see the hips of the corner. If he opens up his hips, take the hitch, right? If he closes his hips, then it's going to be tough for him to flip his hips and throw it and take away the corner over the top. And so it's always kind of adding in these elements. We talk about QB Confidential and, this is step 1 and then this is step 2. And so it's doing those things as well as it's understanding those little nuances and starting them from ground zero and then continually advancing along the way so they can start to understand, okay, the initial depth, pre-snap, what does that mean? Okay, the movement, what does that mean? Where their hips are, what does that mean for a particular concept? And so then it start layering all these things in so you can give them as much as you possibly can so they can be successful when they go out there on their own.
So if you're building a playbook from scratch, then are you more of a fan of like, hey, these concepts are going to be these coverages and then layer in on top? Like, for instance, if I'm throwing fade out to the left side and I have smash to the right side, we know which one's whatever beater to the outside. But now if I want to go wide cross and I want to bring that right receiver over with the fade out, like my quarterback now knows how to progress from 1 to 2 to 3. Like, where are you looking to when you're building a playbook? Do you want to go to half field concepts first, then layer everything on top? Or are you a fan of just let's progress this thing from 1 to 2 to 3 to check 3 to be in the hot to the check down?
I'm not a big pure progression type guy. And so very much what I do when building concepts is I try to split the field in half as much as I can. Just in terms of just saying, hey, pick a side based on whatever the coverage is, and then here's who we're reading on a particular play. And so to me, it is, I'm always building half field concepts. Now there are some pure progression and there are some, full field concepts and stuff that I coach. But to me, it's always teaching guys on particular plays what we're trying to do. And so for instance, I could use slant flat since we've talked about it.
Yeah.
I could use curl flat. I could use something that I call fish, which is a hook in a flat. I could use, plays like double hitch or double out, those kind of plays. And I tell my guys that here's the bottom line is that any play that's attacking the hook in the flat area of the field, we're going to read it the exact same way. And so it's trying to stack things together where they understand, this is what we're attacking on this particular play. And so now I can look for that same coverage. I'm looking for a corner off coverage because it's all about an outside linebacker read. So all of those plays are read exactly the same way. And so as I'm installing things, I'm always trying to look at it from that perspective. Where are we attacking on a particular play? I could go smash. I could go with the corner in and out. Okay, so those are cover 2 plays for us where we're going to read the corner, and I need you to learn, depth of the corner and body language of the corner. And so that to me is how I like to layer in, building my playbook is, is giving guys the understanding of how things tie together, and what we're looking at on a particular play. The pure progression to me and why I always have a problem with it is because I think it's when most pure progression plays are running guys into different zones. And so I'm a believer that if you're running everybody to a different zone, the defense has a chance to cover it. They have a chance to have somebody in all of those different zones. And so the timing element is so weird because it's not a natural timing. The read portion is not something I'm familiar with because you're not really reading a man to tell you where to go with the football. You're trying to see if you think a guy is open. And so to me, there's so many different elements of that. Now, that doesn't mean I won't have a play where I go, okay, we got curl flat to the right, and we're playing against a quarters team. And so you got a backer, and if he pushes through to the curl, then we're going to bring in shallow over. And so it becomes more of a natural progression. but it's still off of defender read type stuff. So my quarterbacks know this particular play, this is a structure I'm looking for. If I get that structure, here's where my eyes go. And then I can take their eyes from there to the next defender if I want to, with more of a pure progression. But to me, it's teaching the understanding of, why are we running a concept like this? Who are we trying to attack? So in QB Confidential, one of the things that I do in my Blackboard session is I've created what I call the 10-zone approach. And so the 10-zone approach is, is taking the field and splitting it into 10 different zones. So I've got 5 underneath zones and 5 deep zones. I'm a believer, even playing at the highest level, that no one defender can cover more than a 10 by 10 square at any one time and do it well. I don't care how athletic you are, because if I can get you moving with that athleticism in one direction, you can't cover more than 10 by 10 because you're moving and I can manipulate you. So I give them a 10 by 10 box, even the best athletes in the world. And so I've got my 5 zones underneath and I got my 5 zones deep. And, understanding that the deep zones obviously don't just go 10 yards deep. They got to go all the way to the end zone, however deep that is. And so that's where we get maybe a little bit more of advantage when ball has to travel further, but they also have to cover more ground. And so the bottom line is, we always want to talk about coverages, and we got this coverage. So what do we want to do against this coverage? And I'm so much about, okay, here's our play. What zone or zones are we attacking? And then, being able to look at it from that perspective, where now all I have to know is, what are we attacking on this play? How many defenders are in those zones? Oh, we've got 2 in those zones. They've got 1. You can read that guy anytime you want. I don't care what the coverage is. I don't care what they're doing on the other side. I don't care if they're rolling or not rolling. Tell me how many defenders are in those zones. So it's taking more of a general approach to, you need to understand what we're trying to do with this concept. We're trying to attack the curl flat. So we're trying to attack the hook flat area. Oh, soon as the corner's off, they've got 1 guy over there to do that. You can read that every time, find that guy, read that defender, get the ball out of your hands. We're going to have a chance to be successful. So it's trying to simplify the game as quickly as possible. And that's what I try to do when I'm installing my offense, is getting guys to understand, what are we trying to do? What's the zone we're trying to attack? Okay, now come out. How many defenders you got there? 1. How many defenders you got there? 2. All right, 2, you're off of it. And it's simplifying it instead of trying to get, because there's more complicated coverages, or teams have played different things. And, you try to go back, hey, what coverage was it? And, I'm not really sure what coverage it was. But you can come back and say, Coach, I don't know what coverage it was, but the corner was off. I read the outside linebacker and I knew I had a chance. Boom. That's all I want. Play the game fast. Know what you're looking for. And once you know what you're looking for, now you can speed this process up. You can get your eyes to the right guy and you have a chance to be successful.
Yeah, and I love that too, because you're building essentially your playbook into families too. So like you said, like a kid can take, as an outside linebacker read, I know with this family, my eyes are going right there. And I cut the field in half too, which I think is easy as well for any high school kid. Right. Question off of that too, how do you build in hots to your offensive system? Like, zero pressure's coming now, you got to get it to this side, running back coming out. Like, how do you build that into these plays that you just talked about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on the level. When I coached high school, I tried to build in as many as I could, instead of asking my guys to have to be aware. Like, a quarterback's always had to be aware of it. But, not asking my receivers to be as aware of it, just because I think it's a little harder and it's a little more time consuming at that level. And so, was studying the blitzes that we expected to get. It was my quarterbacks knowing, on a particular protection, this is really the only guy you have to worry about, right? We try to simplify, like, hey, you got the Sam linebacker, right? Here's your quick throws on these particular concepts. Sam linebacker comes, you got to beat him with the throw. But as I get to the higher levels, to me, there's so many different ways to build in the hots. I wasn't a guy that liked to change routes so much, but I would have guys peek. I would have guys understand on the outside who the quarterback is responsible for too. So if I've got a slot receiver and the Sam linebacker comes off his head and he's running a vertical, I want him to peek at the quarterback. So now we get, we build in some options in our hots. And so anytime I have a hot protection, I'm going to have a hot answer. And obviously every play isn't going to be great, but you're going to have a hot answer. You're going to know where the answer is. So we at least have a chance to be successful against that particular blitz. I'm not a guy that, harps on trying to pick up every blitz. That's another thing, is that blitzes are too complicated now. That, there's so many versatile players and people walking up, and they walk up to one side and blitz on the other side. Trying to solve every problem by getting your protection right, to me, is a waste of time, and it hurts so many teams, even at the NFL level. These teams that are trying to pick up everything and scan the back, and they put their quarterback in so many different binds because quarterback thinks everything's picked up, and they're missing all kinds of things and negative plays. And so I will always teach my quarterbacks, these are your hots. If you want to and you know what's coming, you can go ahead and switch your protection and pick it up if you want. But that's not that important to me. What's important to me is making a positive play against that. So if you're not sure, leave it on and look at your hot. If he comes, deal the football. Get the football out and get a positive play, and we'll focus in on that sort of thing. So it's important to me that my quarterbacks always know protections. I tell the quarterbacks that I work with, beyond knowing our playbook, beyond knowing what I needed to do in every situation, the second most important thing that I looked at and studied was protections. I wanted to know what my offensive line was doing on every play, on every pressure, on every look. I wanted to know where we were going, what we were doing, who I was responsible for, what our options were. And I felt like I was one of the best to ever do it in terms of handling pressure and handling hots and getting the ball out of my hands. But I studied it. I worked on it. It was important to me. And I welcomed the blitz. I wanted teams to blitz me because I felt like it was just easier. Like, shoot, I don't have to stand back there and hope my guys up front block them. And I read blitz, boom, get the ball out of my hands, let my playmaker go make a play. And so I welcomed that because I studied it, and it was important to me. And, and I think it's important to all the guys that I teach, is understanding those elements. And then not only those elements, but then what am I going to do? What are you going to do on every play? What is your answer on every single play if you're forced into a hot situation?
Yep. Kurt, this has been unbelievably helpful for coaches out there that are listening. As we wind down to the end of the podcast here, is there any last words that you'd like to say to our coaching crowd that's going to be listening to this podcast?
I think the biggest thing I would say is never stop challenging your beliefs. It's funny that, my son always talks to me all the time because I'm very convicted in what I coach. And he's like, Dad, every time we do this, you just listen and then you go right back to doing what you did before. And I'm like, well, oftentimes I do because I'm very convicted in what I believe in. But I always want to listen. I'm always open to, tell me why I should do it different. Tell me why I'm not doing it right. Tell me why this is more effective than what I believe. And so I'm always looking for those things to challenge me. I'm never one, even though, like you said, very seldom do I change my mind, because I believe there's a reason and a why behind everything that I do, that I've studied it, I've worked on it, I've come up with theories on why this is better. But I'm never like, oh, I don't even need to listen. I got it all. I know it all. Tell me, show me. And I have conversations all the time on X or with coaches that come or people that ask me, just why this foot back? Why that foot back? And why you do this? Why? But I always have a reason. So I would just challenge coaches out there to just, always have a reason. Don't ever do anything without knowing the why behind it. Designing a play, teaching a concept, teaching technique to a quarterback. Always know the why. If you don't know the why, find out the why. Find out why you do it. And then secondly, even if you have a why, always be open to listening to what other people have to say, because it does one of two things. A, it gives you information you didn't have before that can make you better, or B, it simply convicts you more in what you already believed, right? I've had numerous conversations that the further I get into it and the more I hear somebody, the more I realize, nope, not going to do it that way. Nope, that just convicts me more on what I'm saying because this scenario came up or that scenario. So that's the thing to me, is because it's amazing to me, how much I make myself available to coaches want to talk and want to talk ball, and how few people take advantage of it. And I think one of the reasons is because they're afraid to be wrong, or they don't really know the why behind what they teach. So they know when you have a conversation, you got to know, you got to understand. You're going to be challenged. I'm going to challenge everything. I'm going to challenge everything that I do. I'm going to challenge everything you do. I'm going to ask you your why. Because if you don't have a why, then why should a quarterback, be convicted to do what you're telling them to do? And I think there's too many people out there that have just kind of decided, I'm going to do it this way. Man, I want to figure it out. I want to ask people. If I'm not sure why, you tell me why you do it this way, and you tell me why you do it that way, and you tell me what, and then I can, start to put this information together and figure out what works best for me to be successful, knowing that I'm coaching people. Not only do I want to be successful, but I want to give whoever I'm coaching the chance to be the most successful they can be. So to coaches that are out there, I would just say, always challenge your why. Continually challenge your why. Look for people that will challenge your why. Look for people or look for opportunities to go places and hear different perspectives, because it will do one of those two things. It'll either make you better or it'll make you more convicted in what you're teaching, which both will improve, who you are as a coach. And so that would kind of be my one final statement to coaches that are out there, is that I always want to be coachable. I always want to be able to listen. I always want to be able to learn. And I always want to have those conversations. Like, even if somebody proves me wrong, I need to get into the conversation first for them to do that. And I want to welcome and engage in those things. And it's something that I love to do. I love to talk about the why, whether I'm breaking down NFL tape, talking to NFL coaches, talking to high-level quarterbacks, or it's young high school coaches that are just starting out. Tell me why. Don't do anything without a why, because I think that's the most important aspect of coaching.
Yeah. And you can find Kurt at Kurt Warner on X, Twitter, and QBconfidential.com. Kurt, I can't thank you enough for your time as we wrap up this podcast here. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will see you all next week.